High school football season is here, and Sports on Tap has you covered all season long with in-depth coverage and analysis. You won't want to miss our special football shows each Monday of the high school season from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Catch recaps of all the games, interviews with local players and coaches, and hear if your team is playing in the game of the week. For the best high school football coverage, turn to Sports on Tap. Every Monday from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network.
And welcome, everybody, to Sports on Tap. This is Week 9 here live from Studio J. Sports on Tap, part of the Northeast Ohio NEO Sports Insiders Network. And Josh Jeffy, Sean Duffy, Ed Dick here live at Studio J. Our esteemed colleague, Mr. Troutman, is on assignment today.
He is.
Lots of people on assignment.
Being very presidential today, though. He was hanging out with Vice President Joe Biden.
Do we have pictures of this?
He did send me a text, yes, of Joe Biden, not with him and Biden, but he was at the event where Joe Biden was at.
So he was vice presidential.
Vice president.
He's being very vice
There it
presidential
is,
today. I gotcha.
There it is.
How about that?
Hey, a little story about Joe Biden, though, too. I was actually downtown for work, and we had to be stopped because his motorcade went by. That was the first time I've ever seen a presidential or / vice presidential motorcade. So it was really cool to see, actually, a lot of law enforcement involved in that one, including a Cleveland EMS. So
nice.
Was Air Force 2 here?
I don't know. I don't remember. I didn't go down by the airport.
I think it was. I lived by the airport, and you couldn't get towards 237 for a certain point in time because they had, and then you could see it as you were going by. I think down Bagley, maybe you could actually see, like, because you kind of where Bagley kind of dips out over there, you can kind of bang down 237 before it becomes 237 Rocky River Drive. You guys saw the plane. I wasn't stalking or anything. I was just out running an errand, but I was a little.
So he says.
Well, I was upset because I'm like, I usually take 237 to get there, and I couldn't do that. So now I had to think, and then next thing I'm like, oh, there's the vice president's plane. So, way to go, Joe, and way to go, Rob.
Yeah, no kidding. Sports on Tap, covering politics
everywhere.
We got it. We got you covered here.
Yes,
but,
we do.
Our main focus, of course, is the high school football season.
Yes,
we are. We are 90% of the way done through the regular season. This is the last week of the regular season, and we have plenty of teams in our respective conferences jockeying not only for conference titles but also for playoff positioning, trying to get either into the playoffs or B, being able to host a playoff game and hopefully avoiding a long bus trip. Come 2 weekends from now. As we normally do, we will start with the Greater Cleveland Conference.
Yes.
Our own Josh Jeffy takes care of that conference, and he's going to get us started.
Yeah, we started out. We had a game last Thursday. The Medina Bees, the Red Hot Bees, took on the Euclid Panthers, and Medina went on to a 26-19 victory. They improved to 8-1 overall, 5-1 in the conference. Euclid, that was a pretty big loss for them as they dropped to 6-3, 4-2 in the conference. Medina had their own version of the drive in this game. They did drive 98 yards in the final 5 minutes of a game, capped off by a 1-yard touchdown run that proved to be the game winner. With this victory, Medina clinched a playoff berth, and they are looking to win their first conference title in football this Friday night. It'll be their first conference title since 1973. So,
man.
So, big game for them coming up. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Medina had a big receiving play in this game. Dylan Foltz caught a 65-yard TD pass. Jimmy Daw, the all-everything for Medina, 27 carries in this game, 123 yards. He did add an 18-yard touchdown catch. For Euclid, Arquan Bush had a 42-yard punt return that led to some points for Euclid, and most of the scoring was done by Daquan Pruitt. He had 2 rushing TDs for the Panthers, and this one was not enough, though, as Medina goes on to the 26-19 victory. in a rather surprising game, in my opinion. Menor with a 22-16 victory over the Brunswick Blue Devils. Brunswick played the Menor Cardinals very tough, but just not tough enough. Menor improves to 5-4 on the year, 4-2 in the conference. Brunswick drops to 1-8. They do not have a victory in the conference yet this year. But Brunswick in this game did have the ball on the 35-yard line of Menor with 3 minutes left in the game, but could not convert what would be the go-ahead score on that drive, and that eventually led to Menor getting the victory. For Menor, a couple quick stats. Tadas Tatarunas was 19 for 33, 222 yards and a touchdown. Brunswick did a very good job on the defensive end, keeping him in check. Also for Menor, Isaiah Gulick was the workhorse, 101 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns for them. Brunswick had a touchdown scored by Colin Sestercik.
Sestercik.
Sestercik, thank you. My mouth has a case on the Mondays. And Jacob Martin added a TD. And we have to give credit to Tim Dick with a 33-yard field goal in this game. Brunswick, another tough loss, though. Again, 0-8 in the conference. 0-6 in the conference this year, 1-8 overall. Obviously, playoff hopes are not going to be in the fold this year. Menor still alive in it, though, as we will talk about where they stand, according to Joe Itel, in just a few moments. The other top team in the GCC, Solon, had a 43-6 victory over the Shaker Heights Red Raiders. Solon improves to 8-1. They are currently the only undefeated team left in the GCC. They are 6-0. Shaker drops to 3-3 in the conference, 5-4 overall. For Solon, the scoring goes as follows. Joe Bubonics with 3 touchdown passes. Thomas Wilkes, 2 TD runs. It's pretty much how the offense has been going all season for the Comets. And for Shaker, the only touchdown they had was a Terrence Colvin 45-yard touchdown reception. Now, big game coming up this Friday. We had mentioned it is for the conference title as Solon will travel to Medina. That's a big game. That's obviously going to be a spotlight game for me. But we're going to talk about that one actually a little more further in depth later down the road, so please stay tuned for that one. The final game in the GCC this week, a good victory for the Mustangs of Strongsville as they improved to 2-7 on the year, 1-5 with a 1-5 in the conference with a 15-8 victory over Elyria. Elyria drops to 3-6. They are 1-5 in the conference. Now, tough one for Elyria. Tyree Stevens fumbled the ball at the goal line with 3 minutes and 37 seconds left. Strongsville recovered. There was some argument on whether or not the ball actually crossed the plane before he fumbled it. But looking at it after the fact, the ball did, in fact, come out before he crossed the goal line. For Elyria, Dante Beckett scored the only TD. He was 9 of 21 for only 144 yards passing. For Strongsville, touchdowns for Taylor Griffin. And Dan Nagel had a nice touchdown reception off of a tipped. It came off of a Elyria defender tipped, caught the ball, scored a touchdown. Now, I'm going to have to give my MVP. I did have it written down here. I'm going to have to give my MVP to Isaiah Gulick, and not such a really high-powered offensive showdown. Brunswick did a very nice job on the defensive end, but he still managed to score 2 touchdowns and had 101 yards rushing as Menor went on to a big victory. That was a big victory for them. My spotlight game of the week is going to be Solon at Medina. That one comes down for all the marbles in that one. Other games, though, in the GCC coming up this week. Elyria travels to Menor. Brunswick travels to Strongsville, big rivalry game, which 2 out of the 3 of us have been involved in before. And then finally, Euclid will travel to Shaker Heights. Now, as far as the playoff standings go, according to Joe Itel, we'll start with Region 2 because there's only one team in the GCC, Division I Region 2, that is in the playoff race, and they are in the playoffs, and that's Medina. They currently sit at number 4, according to Joe Itel. Elyria is number 13, Strongsville 15, and Brunswick 16. Now, in Region 1, this is where it gets kind of interesting. Really, 2 teams are really looking into it. Solon, of course, is number 2 in the region, Region 1 D1. Menor is in the outside looking in. They are currently at number 9, but they're at number 9 by just only a little bit. And you can't forget about Euclid. They're sitting at number 10. They're going to need a victory at Shaker Heights. Hopefully that'll help them kind of catapult. But Menor really needs to get a victory against Elyria. And finally, Shaker Heights is at number 12. They are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but still got to give them credit for a really good year considering the year that they had last year. It's a great building block year. So, guys, that wraps up week 9 of the GCC. Again, really looking forward to that matchup, Solon and Medina, for the conference this Friday. We were talking earlier, we wanted to see how Medina would play going into that final stretch against Menor, Euclid, and Solon. Well, right now they're 1-1 going in that final game, and it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger for Medina. I mean, this is going to be the biggest game of their. It's going to be the biggest game of their regular season lives in almost over 40 years. A chance to clinch a share of the conference title. It's something that Medina just hasn't had the ability to do so. And this is a special group, and I have to admit, at the beginning of the year, they're shellacking, admittedly, they're not the hardest of teams in their non-conference, but they've come to play in the GCC, and getting victories over the teams that they've gotten victories over is no small feat. And if they can pull this off against Solon, it's definitely a special year coming their way, and they'll definitely be able to host a playoff game at that point, and and make school history. They've made school history a couple of years ago, actually back in 2010 when they were able to beat Canton McKinley in the playoffs. Something that Brunswick has had multiple opportunities to do, and they have not done so themselves. But it's a very the top 4 teams in the GCC: Solon, Medina, Euclid, and Menor. It's nice seeing a school that we're familiar with from the old Pioneer Conference making some noise against these East Side schools who have long dominated not only this conference but the old Northeast Ohio Conference when that was around. So congratulations to Medina on how good their season's gone so far, and definitely looking forward to this game between Solon and Medina in Week 10 for sure.
Yeah, looking at Joe Itel, I mean, I'm looking at and I'm trying to understand. I don't understand it as well as Ed does, but I got to believe that even if Medina, because Solon and Medina, that's pretty much the powerhouses of the GCC right now. 2 of the teams that going into this are probably the 2 of the best teams, in their respective, or the best teams in their respective divisions. But I got to believe that even let's say a close loss to a Solon team doesn't necessarily knock them out of hosting a home playoff game with an 8-2 record. I mean, unless like you said, Toledo, Whitmer, or Findlay somehow just have. But even then, I just don't see how they can. Even with a win, they can jump Medina right now. And maybe I'm not looking at it correctly, but I'm looking at their max average out. It's still almost four computer points below where Medina is sitting currently.
Well, the way to look at it is margin of victory means nothing.
Okay.
So it's really just based on straight wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
So with Toledo Whitmer in particular, if they are able to win and Medina loses, Toledo's minimum average if they win out is
25.
Is 23.35.
Oh, minimum. Okay.
That's the lowest they can get if they win next week,
right.
And then Medina's highest that they can get if they lose is 22.6.
Okay.
So that's how they would be able to flip-flop there.
Okay.
And same thing with Olentangy, although Olentangy really, it would take them winning and like every other team in their schedule having to win that they beat in order to jump Medina if they were to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at Medina, they're going to finish probably no lower than 6. I would say more realistically 5th.
Right.
But it is still a very real possibility that they'll be able to host a playoff game even with a loss.
Yeah.
A lot has to go right for some of these other teams. For the teams that Whitmer and Findlay have defeated, all those teams are going to have to win.
Yeah.
And some of those teams will have already, when you play in conference play, you cannibalize yourselves.
Right.
So that's when it comes down to the non-conference schedules.
I mean, I'm wondering. Again, I just look at it. I'm saying, Solon is pretty much almost absolutely guaranteed a home playoff game. I mean, at finish being the top 2 going into Week 10, I don't see, even with a loss to a team like Medina, doesn't necessarily. I mean, I think the worst they come out of it is 4. Absolutely the worst.
It would be a similar situation. I would
Yeah.
agree with you on that. McKinley, Glen Oak, and St. Ignatius. Those are all the teams that you'd have to worry that
Right.
everything would have to go right for
Well,
them.
yeah, because then you have the
Non-conference.
St. Iggy game, which is this week too, and that's computer points
Big
in the
points.
same region. Yeah,
I will have to say, looking at this, the team that's going to be a huge fan of Medina coming up is going to be Menor.
Oh yeah.
Because if Medina can beat Solon, Menor beat Medina. Those are huge points, and that probably, with a win, of course, from Menor, gets them into the playoffs. So
I would agree.
interesting stuff happening in the GCC for sure.
Absolutely.
We'll take a short break now, and then when we get back, we're going to discuss the Southwestern Conference, Rob's conference. He's actually not here, but
we're going to do our best.
We're going to do our best. We can't all be Rob.
No, not
I
at
don't,
all.
I don't know the pipes.
We all can't all end segments like Rob either, apparently. So we will.
No.
We will.
We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. We're
We're
like the
making do with
Indians.
it.
We're getting through it.
We're making do with it. All right. Catch us back later. Catch us back here shortly. Coming back for the Southwestern Conference with Sean Duffy via Rob Trotman. Thank you.
You're welcome.